My name is Kofi, and I'm from a small fishing village on the shores of Lake Malawi in East Africa. Our village, Mwaya, has stood on these shores for over 300 years. My grandfather's grandfather built his hut here, and every generation since has made their living from the lake's abundant waters. Growing up, I heard the old stories. Every village elder had tales about the water spirits, the mami wata, they called them, beautiful beings that lived beneath the waves, neither fully human nor fully fish. My grandmother would warn us children, never swim alone after sunset, never follow a beautiful stranger who emerges from the water, and if you hear singing coming from the lake at night, cover your ears and run home. We'd laugh at these stories, superstitious old tales, we thought, legends from a time before education, before we understood the world. How wrong we were. It all started 3 months ago, on a night when the moon hung full and heavy over the water, like a silver coin. The arrival. Jabari was the first to see her. He'd been out late, checking his nets one final time before the storm season began. It was just after sunset, that dangerous time grandmother always warned about, when the sky turns from orange to purple to black. He was pulling in his catch when he heard it, singing. Not like any singing he'd heard before. It wasn't words exactly, more like music made human. Each note seemed to reach inside his chest and pull at something deep within him. Beautiful, haunting, irresistible. That's when he saw her. She was sitting on the rocks near the shore, maybe 50 meters from his boat. Even in the fading light, Jabari said she was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. Dark skin that seemed to shimmer like polished mahogany, long braided hair that fell past her shoulders, adorned with what looked like shells and pearls, eyes that caught the moonlight and reflected it back like mirrors. She wore a wrap of fabric that looked like it was woven from water itself, shifting colors of blue and green and silver. "Brother," she called out to him, in perfect Chichewa, our local language. Her voice was like warm honey. "The night grows cold. Would you take me to the village? I've traveled far and need shelter." Jabari, usually a cautious man, didn't hesitate. He steered his boat toward her. When she stepped into his boat, he noticed her feet were bare, delicate, perfect feet that left wet footprints on the wooden planks, but she hadn't been in the water. She'd been sitting on dry rocks. He should have questioned that. He didn't. They say Jabari sailed her to shore, walked her through the village, and offered his own hut for the night. His wife, Nia, was visiting her sister in the next village, so he slept outside by the fire. When Nia returned the next morning, the beautiful stranger was gone. So was Jabari. His boat was found 3 days later, empty and drifting near the deepest part of the lake. Of Jabari himself, there was no trace. No body, no clothes, nothing. The elders said he drowned. An accident. These things happen on the lake. But I remember my grandmother's face when she heard. She didn't look sad. She looked terrified. "She's returned," grandmother whispered. "Amara has come back." 2 weeks later, Thomas disappeared. He was a strong swimmer, that one, could hold his breath longer than anyone in the village. He'd been diving near the northern rocks, collecting mussels for his family, when his friends saw him surface with a huge smile on his face. "There's a woman down there," he called out. "Beautiful. She's beckoning me to follow her deeper. There must be a cave or something." He dove again. He never came back up. His friends dove after him, searched for hours. They found nothing. The water there is crystal clear. You can see 30 meters down, but Thomas had vanished as completely as if the lake had swallowed him whole. Then came Samuel, then Joseph, then young Chike, who was only 19 and about to be married. All fishermen, all young, strong men, all disappeared near the water, and each one had been seen talking to a beautiful woman just before they vanished. The descriptions varied slightly. Sometimes her hair was braided differently, sometimes she wore different shells, but it was always the same face, the same hypnotic voice, the same impossible beauty. The village began to panic. Mothers forbade their sons from fishing alone. The chief called emergency meetings. Some wanted to drain part of the lake. Others wanted to bring in outside help, police from the city. My grandmother asked for a village gathering at sunset. That's when she told us the truth about Amara. 70 years ago, grandmother began, her voice carrying across the silent crowd. When I was just a girl, there was a woman in this village named Amara. She was the most beautiful woman anyone had ever seen, and she knew it. Amara was vain beyond measure. She would spend hours at the lake, staring at her reflection in the water, singing to herself about her own beauty. She rejected every suitor who came for her, declaring that no man in the village was worthy of her perfection. But there was one man she desired, Kondo, the chief's son. He was already married to a good woman named Zuri, and they had 3 small children. But Amara didn't care. She wanted Kondo, and what Amara wanted, she took. She used her beauty like a weapon, seducing Kondo away from his family. The affair destroyed Zuri. In her grief and heartbreak, Zuri walked into the lake one night with stones in her pockets and never came back. When the village discovered what had happened, they were horrified. Amara had caused the death of an innocent woman and destroyed a family. The elders banished her, drove her from the village with nothing but the clothes on her back. But Amara was proud, too proud to accept exile. "You call me a monster?" she screamed at the villagers. "You say I belong in the water? Fine, I will become what you claim I am. But I will not go alone. I will take every man who looks at me the way Kondo did. I will take your sons, your husbands, your brothers. The lake will have them all." She walked into the water that night, singing that same eerie song. She walked until the water was over her head. The villagers watched from the shore, expecting her to drown. But she didn't drown. She transformed. They say her legs fused together, becoming a tail like a great fish. Her fingers grew webbed. Her eyes became reflective like a crocodile's. She had become Mami Wada, a beautiful above the surface, monstrous below. For years, she took men from our village, always the young ones, always the handsome ones, always the ones who thought themselves too clever to believe in old stories. Finally, the village elders brought in a powerful medicine man from the mountains. He performed rituals for 7 days and 7 nights, and on the 8th day, he bound Amara to the deepest part of the lake with spiritual chains. "She will sleep," he said, "as long as the village remembers her story and respects the water. But if the young forget, if they mock the old ways and grow arrogant, she will wake, and she will be hungry." Grandmother looked around at all of us. "We forgot," she said quietly. "We stopped telling the stories. We stopped respecting the water. We called it superstition." She looked directly at me. And now, Amara is awake. I didn't believe her, not completely. Yes, men were disappearing, but there had to be a rational explanation. Maybe a crocodile, a whirlpool we didn't know about, something scientific. So I did what any rational young man would do. I decided to investigate. 3 nights later, I took a small boat out onto the lake. I brought my phone, fully charged, to record anything unusual. I brought a flashlight. I even brought a diving mask and snorkel. I anchored near the northern rocks where Thomas had disappeared. The moon was full again, a perfect mirror on the water's surface. The lake was completely still, like glass, not even a ripple. She rose from the water about 20 meters from my boat. First her head, then her shoulders, then she was just standing there, in the middle of the lake, on water that should have been 10 meters deep. And she was exactly as Jabari had described, beautiful beyond comprehension, skin like polished ebony that seemed to glow in the moonlight, long braids adorned with shells that clicked softly, eyes that reflected the moon like twin stars. "Kofi," she said, and her voice was warm, welcoming. "I've been waiting for you." How did she know my name? "Come closer," she said, smiling. "Don't be afraid. I only want to talk." Every rational part of my brain screamed at me to row away, but my hands moved without my permission, pulling up the anchor, taking up the oars. I rowed toward her. As I got closer, I could see her more clearly in the moonlight. She was perfect, too perfect. Her skin didn't have pores. Her movements were too fluid, too graceful, and when she smiled, her teeth were too sharp. "That's close enough," she said when I was maybe 5 meters away. "You're a curious one, aren't you? The others, they came willingly, but you came looking for answers." "Where are they?" I asked, finding my voice. "The missing men. What did you do to them?" Her laugh was like breaking glass. "What did I do? I gave them what they wanted. They saw beauty, and they had to possess it. They saw perfection, and they thought it could be theirs, just like Kondo, just like all men who think beauty is meant to be owned." She moved closer to my boat, and I saw it then. Below the waterline, her body didn't end in legs. She had a tail, massive, powerful, scaled like a fish but moving like a serpent. It coiled beneath her, easily twice as long as my entire boat. "You took their lives," I whispered. "I took nothing they didn't offer," she replied. "They followed me into the depths willingly. They swam after me, chased me, tried to catch me, and when they could swim no deeper, when their lungs began to burn and their vision began to fade, I gave them a choice." "What choice?" I asked. "Join me in the water forever or drown alone." Some chose the water. Those ones serve me still, down in my palace beneath the lake. They've forgotten their names, forgotten their families, forgotten everything but their devotion to me. And the others? The others chose death rather than servitude. I respected that choice. She was right next to my boat now, close enough that I could smell her. Not human scent, but something like lake water and night-blooming flowers, and something else, something old. "You're going to kill me too," I said. It wasn't a question. "No," she said, and for the first time something like sadness crossed her perfect face. "You're different. You came seeking truth, not beauty. You came with courage, not lust. That's rare." She reached out one webbed hand and placed something in my boat, a shell, large and iridescent. "Take this to your grandmother and tell her Amara remembers her. Tell her we played together as children before I became this."